information how Lincoln actually declared all the overnight, like all the slaves free and all. But what we need to remember is it was not just like done overnight. Okay, many people in the southern states, living in the deep south and all, they didn't know about this emancipation proclamation. Okay, even if they knew, they kept their slaves. Okay, and the slaves did not know because most of them were uneducated and all. They didn't know. Okay, so it was a slow sort of process of emancipating themselves from the ideology itself, the pro sort of pro-slavery ideology also. Okay, so we will talk about that also. Then we can think about how discrimination continues after the after these changes legally also. So basically, legally they couldn't own slaves. But the thing is, what do you do with this populace of people who are living here as a minority? They become a minority now, and they are not given the same sort of level of appreciation as a human being, right? They were not accepted into the larger society. They were always seen as outsiders. Okay, people used to even now they actually do that, like the kind of racial hatred that you came from Africa, you go off to Africa. They did not arrive here by their own will. They were brought here actually. So you see this sort of discrimination continue on, which gives rise to what we know as the civil rights movement. Okay, we all of us have heard of Martin Luther King Jr. and all that. So basically, this is a time of discrimination, the segregation, Jim Crow laws and all, where everything was segregated. Okay, everything, all of American society was completely divided into white and black. Hospitals, white entrance, backward in the back, black entrance. Okay, if there was a water to drink, there was a white tap for white people and another tap for colored. They used to call them colored over there. Okay, so the colored entrances and the water, all these things that we have seen, right? In schools, you see that most of the people who did not want integration, okay, do not want this population to come and join into the main, the normal sort of society. They were like, the government is trying to force us, the federal government is trying to force us to integrate. We do not want to integrate. And one of the signs you see, integration creates racial hatred. So basically, they were saying, don't force us into anything. We don't want that. There will be more violence and everything because of that. Most people were saying that. Maybe not now, maybe later, but not now. So they didn't want black kids to enter into the same schools and colleges that white people were going to. Okay, so there was this exclusion from every aspect of American life, every aspect of social and public life. There was this, different treatment that they went through. Okay, and let us think about these different types of eras. Okay, when there was the slavery era. Okay, how life was for them. What we could read from our perspective, like we could read some of the slave narratives, ex-slaves, whatever they narrated. Most of them did not know how to read and write. Basically, what they would do is, when they escaped from the southern states, mostly this was slavery was happening in the southern states of America. Okay, we are not talking about South America, but the southern states of America. Okay, and when they escaped into states like Pennsylvania and all the northern states, they used to sit them down, tell them their story, and they used to write it down. Okay, so there are quite a few slavery narratives right now, right? And I forgot to mention that movies. 12 Years a Slave, I think you've heard of this movie, right? Like the recent 2012 movie. It's based on Samuel Northup's narrative over there. Okay, we can go and read that. We can for research, like I will mention a few words there here. So there were like slave narratives back then. Okay, and both these women, okay, were very important in the African American narrative. Both of them did not know how to read and write. Okay. Sojourner Truth actually learned how to read and write and gave a speech, okay, um, in the Women's Convention. It's a sort of feminist speech and all. I love that speech actually. We can go look at her work because they did not write anything about themselves. Harriet Tubman is someone who rescued a lot of slaves. She escaped from slavery from the southern states to the northern states and went back in secret missions. There was something called the Underground Railroad. She returned over there and many times on these expeditions and saved many slaves and without the whites finding out about it. Okay, saved many lives. And she became like a big figure and she did many things actually. She even worked as a spy in the Civil War during the Civil War. All this thing. Okay. So the pre-civil rights movement, you can talk about how this has actually happened. How did they form and get to the point of civil rights, asking for their rights and all. They did not know how to read and write because that was not allowed. Okay. And the only place where they could gather and form and think about themselves, their rights and all, was the religious gatherings that they happened. Okay, so the black civil rights movement comes out of the black church. Okay, so that is one important thing that we need to remember. And what we think is, in the civil rights movement, we have this notion that Martin Luther King is the main figure and all. But what actually started the series of events is a person called Rosa Parks. There is a picture of her right over there, sitting in a bus. Okay, so what she did was, there was a segregation sort of ideal back then, or segregation laws, which prevented black people from sitting in the front of the bus. When you are in a bus, you are supposed to go back and sit there. What she did was, she did not give up her seat. She sat down decently like that. She didn't say anything. She kept quiet. She sat down and she did not get up when the white man asked her to get up. Okay, and the bus was stopped. Okay, so the federal police actually surrounded the bus and she would not get up actually. And many people came to burn the bus or kill her or something like that. So it was a big national sort of event that happened, and black people stopped using buses. They started walking as a protest to show that, why would we pay to such a system which doesn't treats us like a second-class humans, and they stopped that. And that is what actually propelled this civil rights movement. They got the consciousness after this event, thinking that, okay, we need to do something about it. Okay. And this preacher called Martin Luther King, he started preaching in his, I think it's something sort of Baptist church and all. Then he started, rallying up of people and all. Okay, it was also very quite a diverse movement also. Okay, so there were some people, because Martin Luther was influenced by Gandhi ideology. Okay, no, we should not use violence or force or anything like that. We should actually protest, and there should be a moral sort of ethical sort of protest. Saying, so he was inspired by Indian figures like Gandhi. Okay, but when it comes to Malcolm X and Muhammad Ali, who were very important sort of figures in in the civil rights movement, they were of more of a sort of like they can be described as someone who's very sick and tired of the whole thing actually. Okay, you can see the sort of forceful sort of hate. Malcolm X actually, most of his life and all that, he sort of hated black people in a way, which is understandable actually at that time because of the kind of atrocities that were happening towards blacks. Okay, so both of them actually converted to Islam. He's saying that Christianity is something of a white man's religion and all. Okay, and Malcolm X, what happened is Malcolm X actually changed. He is considered very radical and everything, and a different sort of perspective. But once he made the pilgrimage to the Hajj, and he saw white Muslims over there, so then he said that I could see them as my brothers. Okay, then he actually understood okay, we cannot just go on demonizing the white person, because in this movement also you see it was not just black people fighting for their rights. There were many conscientious white people who were supporting these rights. The great example for this is mostly people from universities and colleges. There was something called freedom rights. After this event, I think after this or before this, I don't know. But after this event, there was something like they used to ride as a protest against this system. They used to ride buses with white people in the back and black people in the front.